September the 14th, 2023. Guys, you're looking at Category 2 Hurricane Lee. It is 8:20 a.m. Central Time. It's 9:20 for you guys on the East Coast. If you look very carefully at this 100-mile-per-hour storm, the eye wall is very well defined under this top layer of white clouds. It's going to show up right there after the sun rises. You can see it very clear. It's unwinding from being a major storm. Now, Bermuda is this white area right here, not a very big island at all. And they're already starting to feel the brunt of some of these tropical storm force winds now. You guys along North Carolina, you're starting to see some of this also. And it's a lot closer to Bermuda than it is to you guys, but you just see how much energy is involved in this storm. Now, the latest from the National Hurricane Center at 8 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time this morning shows pretty much the same path we've been looking at. Here's Maine. You've got Nova Scotia here coming in right in there. It looks like possibly plowing into between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, the center. But this could vary. Again, they're saying at the top, the cone that you're looking at here contains the probable path of the storm center, but does not show the size of the storm. Hazardous conditions can occur outside of this cone. We're starting to see it again. Some of the webcams out at Nag's Head are picking up some pretty good waves. In Bermuda, you're in the tropical storm wind field right now. See the brown area here? Now, if you remember a video a couple back, I was showing the size of these blocks, the longitude and latitude that you're seeing here, and they decline as they get further north. They're showing elongation here, but everything's bending on the actual globe itself. But the outer tropical storm winds here are over, I'd say, 700 or 800 miles wide, because this block was 625 miles wide from this point here to this point here. By the time we get up around New Brunswick area and Nova Scotia, because of the declining size of the blocks, you're about 500 miles across here. So that path is, you're looking at 350-mile wide possible path of where the storm could go. But right now it looks like, and it always happens a couple of days before the storm, everything starts coming together. But we have seen changes at the last minute. Now, tropical storm watches up from the tip of Long Island all the way up into the Canadian border. In the pink are hurricane watches here. And, of course, tropical storm warnings up for Bermuda. And, guys, that's probably from Bermuda to the center of the storm of 300 miles or so, maybe more than that. So just showing you how far reaching this is. So as you get this storm up into this area, it's going to be slowing down. It's saying tropical storm right here, 2 p.m. Saturday. But that's because the outer bands are already interacting with the land and slowing it down. But your timing again this morning, it's here, 2 a.m. Friday in the morning, or after midnight tonight here. You basically look at it, it's west, slightly northwest of Bermuda. Bermuda, you're still going to be getting hit, and you're going to be much closer to the hurricane force winds in the center, much closer. Then 2 a.m. Friday here, 2 p.m. Friday here. 2 hours after midnight Saturday, guys, things are going to start getting very active along this area of the East Coast because of the size of the storm. Now, if this storm had cut a little further to the right, it would have been the perfect Atlantic hurricane for one of the hottest years on record. Now, some will say the numbers have been played with on the record heat and things like that, but guys, I've lived in the United States for a long time. I've never seen a summer like this. And I know those numbers weren't hyped, because not only could you feel it, I have 2 separate weather stations here that I can compare with. It gives me all the readings. I mentioned that before. But the reason I'd say it was almost a perfect storm as it is going to hurt some folks in Bermuda and up through the Northeast, both in the U.S. and Canada. But it's taken so long to come to this point. Remember Cat 5 down before it got above the Caribbean Sea? It's released, I don't know how you would measure it, but a tremendous amount of heat. Pulled it up out of that warm water, pushed it up in the upper atmosphere, and helped cool the entire planet because the way that these fronts move, the Pacific Ocean has been getting a lot of storms, a lot of people getting hit. But again, the water was too hot here in the Atlantic and over into the Mediterranean. Remember the Medicane? I know that's just a term, but the one that flooded out, and we're still talking about 10 to 12,000 people that were affected. We know of 2 or 3,000 already were killed and another 8 to 10 missing. But other than what it's going to do now to Bermuda and up into the Northeast, this storm going into the Cat 5, Cat 4s has done what nature intended it to do. But you guys have to pay attention to what it's about to do. Now, the Storm Surge report was updated at 5 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time this morning, and these are storm surge watches, not warnings. Let me pull this down. The light pink are watches. When this goes darker pink or hot pink, whatever you call it, it's a watch. But right now you got Nantucket, the entire Cape Cod Bay area here, all of these Outer Banks are under a storm surge watch. So make sure you pay attention to that. And what I would do was look at the tide tables. Start now if you're going to try to hang this storm out. At least it's slowing down, but right now it looks like it's still capable of doing a lot of damage, and we don't want to lose anybody to flooding waters or getting caught with a tree coming through your house or something like that. You're going to more than likely lose some power. Be prepared. This is the latest rainfall amounts. This came out at 5:14 a.m. Eastern Time this morning. The orange areas here, you're 6 to 10 inches. If you're in the yellow area, you're 4 to 6. In your green area, 2 to 4. In the lighter areas here, 1 to 2 inches of rain. But this is where they're expecting it. Now, a friend of the channel had sent me some information yesterday morning or the day before. Everything's running together the last few days, guys. But the storms up in the Northeast, the flooding, the washouts and the roads and all that. And if I get time today, I'm going to show you some of the images that were sent with the email. So you don't need much more moisture in the north. Now, this is going through September the 17th, and that's when it's on land. But there's going to be outer bands affecting you to the left here in the Northeast from the fronts that are moving your way from the west. But this is the latest on the rainfall amounts. And this is a good update here, also at 5 a.m. this morning. It is the peak storm surge forecast. In the blue, you've got up to 3 feet. In the yellow, up to 4 feet of storm surge. Now, if you read this information here, it says this is included or inclusive of the tide. So that's good information to have. From Rockaway Inlet at the southwestern tip of Long Island, 1 to 2 feet. From Montauk all the way to Chatham, 1 to 3 feet. And notice in this section behind Long Island here, in this bay or whatever it's called, inlet, 1 to 3 feet in this area because this water is going to be trapped. Remember, the storm is spinning counterclockwise, throwing everything in this direction. You got 2 to 4 feet from Chatham to Provincetown, Sagamore Beach, and then 1 to 3 feet up to the Canadian border. More than likely, this will change some as the storm gets closer to it, but right now, this is not the impact points of the center of the storm, but this is what we've been concerned about the entire time, because for several days we've been watching it head up to the U.S.-Canadian border. So what does that include? When you're talking about Long Island, you know Manhattan will be affected. So don't be trapped in the underground subways and underground buildings and things like that. That be above ground or whatever you're doing. We've seen it happen before. But pay attention to this, guys. 15 minutes ago, they updated this. It's showing 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It's 8:45 Central where I'm at. But everything is coming together right in the same point now, and especially your purple here, which is the Navy model, and the very light green that cuts in and crosses the Navy model about where the letter H is in Halifax there, and here's Bermuda. And we need to take a look at some of these webcams, but this is the latest this morning. Now, let's take a look at the Navy model first, guys. I'm going to play this through. There, you're very close to Bermuda. Notice it makes a little S here. There's your second storm. Bermuda, I looked at the webcams earlier, and I'm going to show you guys a few seconds. It wouldn't stay up long. But you're going to catch it from this storm. You're not going to have very much time. That we know this storm will wobble somewhat. Maybe it'll turn more to the Atlantic side and stay away from you. But just don't let your guard down quite yet. You can see right here in the Navy model, the storm bobs to the right, cuts back, and comes in at the southern tip right there of Nova Scotia. High pressure setting up. That's what we're dealing with here. Let's take a look at the Canadian model. Now, as far as the lead goes, the path is, they pretty much got it down pat coming in. You'll see on the Canadian model right here into Nova Scotia, that southwestern tip. But the second storm here does not come to the right side of Bermuda. It comes to the left side the same way Lee does. Let's watch this. Right into the tip of Nova Scotia, your second storm coming in here. But right there is Bermuda. Watch the opposite side. So Bermuda, you could take back-to-back hits. Where's it going? Same place, basically. Now, being a week or so out, the second storm, we're going to see this path change because the high pressure is going to change. The fronts coming off the U.S. will change during that period of time. But this is what we're seeing from the Navy model. We are just past 4 days past the peak of hurricane season, which lasts until November, the last day of November. But we are seeing massive heat releases, and this is the only reason this planet hadn't overheated. So Mother Nature's doing what it has to do. I'm not saying there's not some outer forces affecting some of this, but the larger these storms get, I think that man has less and less effect on it, whether it's trying to steer it or whatever. But once you get to that point, they take over, and it wouldn't be, I don't think there's enough energy involved with the sources that would do some type of weather changing to handle that. But we've all seen the LBJ video from the 60s that says, he who controls the weather controls the world. You guys remember that? I do. I think I still got a recording of it somewhere. But again, same path except for the second storm. Now, guys, this is Avon Pier in North Carolina. You can already see these huge waves skirting over that pier, and it looks like it still possibly has some damage from last year. I'm not sure. I haven't been up that area. Let us know, guys, if you're anywhere around the Avon Pier area. Large waves already, and look how far this thing is out to sea and south of your area right now. So this is what you're gonna see in New York, Long Island, all the way up through that section of the Northeast, guys. So be prepared for it. These are very powerful waves. It's not even advised to surf once you get to this point. I know people do it. I've seen them do it in Florida many times under the pier at Pensacola Beach with a hurricane coming in. But it's very dangerous, and your rip currents when you're swimming can be deadly. Let's take a look, guys. I want to show you a clip of, I don't know what happened to the webcam in Bermuda, but I'm going to show you a few seconds of what they're going through, and this was maybe an hour ago. But I'll play it, guys, and I'm going to back out. I'm going to let you listen to the wind that's there and watch for updates. It's a heads up. Be safe.